Another episode of Before You Buy That Show. We give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and we've been busy lately, man. This is The Alters. This is a new game from 11-Bit Studios and the folks behind This War of Mine. So when I posted about this game on social media, it seems like some of you haven't heard of it. So I'm here to tell you right off the bat, this is just a cool and unique game. It takes elements from a lot of stuff, but molds it all into a really distinct science fiction game. And if this checks off the boxes on your personal preference list, this game should absolutely be on your radar. So just so you know before we get into it, we've been playing a review copy running on PS5 Pro, where this footage is captured, and it's as spoiler-free as possible. Keep in mind it's a dialogue and story-heavy game, so I can't hide all of it. But I tried not to show big special moments and reveals. So the easiest way to describe this game might sound a little reductive, easy to just get you in the headspace here. So think Fallout Shelter, the Fallout mobile game but in full 3D, with a dense story filled with characters and RPG decision-making, plus full planetary exploration, with some survival elements and some Death Stranding building type stuff. So if you like these types of games, then yes, this is as cool as it sounds. You play as Jan Dolsky, a pretty straightforward guy who was on a scientific space mission when he suddenly wakes up, and him and his team have crash-landed on this planet. This mysterious, unknown planet, and he's the only survivor. So you get to the outpost and it's time to get to work, figuring out how to escape, while also just making sure you craft yourself enough food and find enough mining resources to craft, like radiation filters to survive. Keep your base up and running and hopefully just, progressively get better tech and get the hell out of here. However, it quickly becomes clear, you really needed that whole team that just died. That was a team of technicians, scientists, doctors, just more hands on deck. So thanks to some cool story stuff I won't spoil, it turns out you can kind of develop clones of yourself, but with a cool twist. So the twisting timeline of Jan's life is involved here. So every clone you earn and generate is a different version of Jan, where his life may have just taken a different turn. Maybe he decided to go to med school and become a doctor. Maybe he, after a breakup, moved to the West Coast, and when he was young, he got a job at this refinery. Maybe he reacted to a relative passing away differently, or ended up divorced and in a totally different specialization. Most of it is just very realistic stuff. It's not like crazy over-the-top comic book stuff. It's just like real human stuff. And it's interesting to see these paths diverge. There are a lot of these different people to choose from, and all of them have their use cases for the survival and crafting elements of the game. Like the technician can craft essential items faster. A miner can mine more efficiently. A doctor can be posted up in an infirmary and prepare better meals. These copies or clones of you are called alters. Yes, so everyone has a lot of work to do, including you, and everything in this game loop takes time. So the game is structured in days, with this impending threat looming ever closer. And your day is limited, There's only so much you can do before you get tired. So this is where you'll really feel the usefulness of your alters. Having more versions of you mining something takes a chunk of your day. Fixing something takes a big chunk of your day crafting. Cooking, healing from radiation outside. Everything takes substantial time. So it's all about time management and delegation. Choosing how and what to spend your time on strategically, while just juggling the threat of magnetic storms damaging your base, quicker or new threats and challenges requiring new tools, and just, of course, keeping the lights on. It can be challenging. You're juggling a lot. Yes, but it all goes down in a way that doesn't feel like an oppressive survival game where you're just grinding to make the numbers go up. It's not mindless, and that's what I like about it. The Alta's heavy character and story focus just makes it feel like more than a survival game. And as someone with not a lot of patience for survival games, depending on which one, like this title, it just feels like the perfect balance for me. There is a critical path. There's progression to getting to the bottom of what's going on and trying to get off this planet and survive. And it's structured in a series of acts. each dropping you into usually a new section of the planet with new challenges in between. Big goals, like build a bridge to move your station to a safer area, or research what's going on out in the environment, like how to fix this electromagnetic field. Stuff like that. You're also getting tons of little quests that pop up. These usually involve pleasing the altars and stuff like that, which I'll get to in a bit. Venturing out onto the planet's surface is kind of like its own puzzle. So your suit has limited battery to use, so you can only use one device, or scale a limited amount of cliff sides, or only break through some rocks at a time to open up new areas. The levels of the planet here are really intricate, like they're labyrinths, where you're slowly just finding the right resource spots to mine the most efficient routes, just slowly chipping away at unlocking shortcuts and stuff like that. Here it then also feels like Death Stranding a little bit, because you're journeying out and you're trying to connect everything. Here it's physically, with power pylons, to get mining resources all the way back to the base, and then serve as fast travel points. So early on in the game, it feels like you're just running a humble power line over to a mining machine. But eventually these things twist and turn and go for miles. It's cool you're doing all this while finding secrets, conducting experiments, and like I said, trying to dodge dangerous environmental radiation and stuff, and all these weird scientific anomalies that pop up. I found the outside stuff to get more and more complex in some pretty interesting ways. Decent pacing to it, but I really like the indoor stuff a bit more. Outside Yen is clunky and can really only do so much. It does feel a bit limited. Still, I think it gets the job done and is entertaining and engaging enough. Then there's also managing the altars themselves. They can get overworked, they can get hurt, they can be hungry, generally pissed off. They can even be pushed to rebel against you and force you out, resulting in a game over. So it becomes a game of managing different versions of Yarn or yourself, which conceptually is just really interesting. This is where the publisher's previous experience with games like This War of Mine or even Frostpunk really comes into play. I'm talking important, oftentimes extremely challenging, stressful choices that have lasting consequences. I don't want to spoil any. Stuff can definitely escalate pretty quickly, especially once you first start settling in and figuring out the game. When you think you got it figured out, things suddenly ramp up and you might panic. Every altar needs something, wants something, and you can ruin relationships that have ramifications beyond just grumpy dialogue. What's so interesting is, from an RPG conversational standpoint, learning how to deal with each individual altar. It's a lot like they all have needs and demands. Some need to relax, some need a place to work out, some need privacy. Some just need someone to talk to, or maybe you find out in the world. Figuring out what makes individual guy tick is really fun, and kind of up to you. There's nuance. The game doesn't overly tutorialize this part. Just figure it out by talking to them. Some of these guys are extremely frank and straightforward, and you can be blunt with them. Others respond to strength. Others need to be babied a little bit. One guy likes to have his ego stroked. I just had a lot of fun figuring out these nuances, especially thanks to some good, genuinely human writing and Yan's voice actor, Alex Jordan. Alex Jordan plays all of the altars, because they're all technically the same DNA. The same guy, but each one in various different diverging life paths. So it can be a little exaggerated, really one guy, you move to the south and you pick up that strong an accent already. But look, I get why they do it. It helps tell them apart a little bit. It's just a very impressive performance. With all of these guys, just good strong differences between them, as well as really special, more nuanced little differences that just make it really interesting to see all and play just out. Kind of unpeel the onion. I got excited anytime I could essentially hatch a new altar. Reading his life timeline to see who he is, where his choices diverged, and then seeing what he's like when you first meet him, and eventually how he deals with the group of the other guys. There's a weird camaraderie that's naturally happening throughout the game, from the character dynamics to the story. of how these characters, exchange their tales with one another, one of them staying with their Sigma, and then realizing the other chose to move and work for a better life, and then maybe one resents the other. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that going on. It's not over the top triple a crazy cutscenes. And there are a few goofy, more awkward moments at smaller scale, but it's interesting stuff if it clicks with you. I think it's really gonna click with you, and as things progress. The game does get pretty challenging, like I've kind of said. So be prepared. There are a lot of difficulty options and sliders if you need at least, and it is worth noting that seems like you're not gonna see everything in one playthrough. Outcomes are different. You may not get every altar, so the game encourages replays. It's also smart enough to say you load a previous save. It'll check off a dialogue choice or decision you've already made. While playing, you'll be aware of what you've chosen in a previous save or a previous playthrough, which is just useful a second time around. So it encourages you to choose different stuff. Because I feel like we all replay games, and we try to do it differently. But sometimes you may not even realize subconsciously you're choosing the same stuff you did last time. So this is a good way of dealing with that. My only real complaint is that the storage system, being a bit of a pain in the ass. This is where it gets bogged down in survival game bullshit. This is the case for plenty of games. It's survival games, it's the rules. But it's the thing that slowed me down, and it felt tedious. Nothing else in the game, despite the survival grind, felt tedious. Just as dealing with the storage limitations. Again, I get it's the game's rules, just pointing out that's how I felt. The only other thing was the occasional visual bug. A little flicker here and there with the lighting. Character getting stuck in the space station. A little weird little animation glitch. Also a prompt on the hood. Or a tip that would occasionally get stuck on screen and hang around for the entire act. Very small issues this. That's all I really saw over over 20 hours, and stuff that might already be patched by the time you're playing. So just be aware, no big red flags here. At least not for me, and the game looks pretty damn good. Characters are detailed, the space station is really detailed, and zooming in and zooming out of it. And moving your rooms around and rearranging everything is smooth and fast and just impressive. From a technical standpoint, I actually had choice of fidelity and performance mode in the options, and I was actually in fidelity mode by accident. I felt that the game looked good and had a good frame rate. So I was happy. I really like the altars. I recommend it if you like these types of games. And it's another one of the games I bring up to be kind of petty. I see a lot of people complaining that all video games are the same. There's nothing new. There's nothing original. Here's another example of something that's cool and different. So if it's up your alley, I highly recommend checking it out. I've been a fan of what these guys put out for a while. And I think the altars definitely will stand the test of time. I think people are gonna look back at this one pretty fondly, but that's it before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some cons and some personal opinion. Now I want to hear yours down in the comments. Let me know what you think of this game. There was a demo available. So if you played the demo, I'd love to know what you think. Hit us with your first impressions. Anything like that, anything at all. A lot of the demo is just there's a lot more to the game. But either way, let's talk about that. Anything that alters down in the comments. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out. We really genuinely appreciate it. Hopefully this helped inform you out at all. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.